probably after the development, right? So we have to take that money, the county collects it, just like any other property tax, and they say, okay, you collected, here's the tip, here's the property tax, here's the tip revenue from that property, and that goes into a fund. That fund then pays for those projects.
That sounds to me like instead of when our value of our homes go up, and that money then, the tax money would go to the school. Now it would be going to a tip.
It's not going to the schools. It's the schools we write a check to. So what do they
Yeah,
would
but-
normally get?
But what happens if the value of the house goes up?
So
So, real quick, no, I'm just curious, so what happened, so back in 1976, the state of Ohio passed what's called House Bill 920. So, those are on what we call voted taxes, right, that's voted millage. So those taxes, as they go up, the effective millage rate gets reduced. So when property taxes go up because the county auditor decides that, hey, everybody's properties are gonna go up by 20 or 30%, the schools aren't getting that money. House Bill 920, it's been around for 40-some years, says no. Because what they did, the purpose of that legislation was to make sure that as taxes increased, people, and inflation gone up, it wasn't gonna attack or affect people in their taxes that would go to school. So for example, if you go to the county website and you look at your property values, and you can select multiple years. If you go back and you look 10 years ago, the effective millage rate, right? So we have a millage rate that's voted in, but then we have the effective millage rate. So what happens, 10 years ago, the effective millage rate that went to Huber Heights City Schools was 52 mils. That 52 mils represented, let's just call it $10 million. Because when you vote for a tax levy, they say it's the millage rate, right? We always hear about that. It's a 7 mil levy or a 9 mil levy, but it's gonna generate X amount of millions of dollars. That's really what you're voting. You're voting on the schools getting $9 million. House Bill 920 caps it at $9 million until a new levy is passed. So what happens as house values go up and property taxes increase, in between now and the time a new levy is passed, the effective millage rate gets reduced, so the schools aren't allowed to get any more. So back in 10 years ago, in 2015, it was the same for all of us. The millage rate was 52 mils. Today, the effective millage rate is 38 mils. So as more people are coming into the city and the county is collecting more property taxes, the schools are capped at what they were allowed to collect based on the last levy that was passed. That's what House Bill 920 says, and that's been in existence since 1976. So as our taxes go up, the schools aren't the benefactor of those increases in taxes. They don't get it.
So who is?
Well, that's a good question. That's a county question.
yeah, it's inside millage. So the only thing that's affected by, there's two things out there, there's inside millage and outside millage, okay? Easy way to explain it. The inside millage is non-voting. The state constitution allows any community in the state of Ohio to have a 10 mil cap. All communities have a 10 mil cap, because when the constitution was passed, every community grabbed it, okay? So there's a 10 mil. Then there is what we call outside millage, or what is voted. That means you as residents, all of us as residents, go into the ballot booth and push yes or no for a ballot. Everybody, majority of the folks votes yes, that is a new millage, and it captures that value at that time. So I always put it this way, if 4 houses are in a neighborhood, and they're all paying $4, or excuse me, they're all paying $5, so the levy's generating $20, okay? What happens when another house moves in? Do they pay 5, or does it go down? It goes down, okay? So instead of, now that there's 5 houses, they all pay $4. The levy still generates $20. Fast forward, like the mayor said, 25 years later, let's say there's 20 houses in that neighborhood. What do they pay towards that levy? $1. And what's the levy generate? $20. So every time a new house moves into the community, the property tax is reduced, and we share that. All of us as taxpayers share that. So every time there's a house that moves into the community, there's a reduction factor that the county auditors in Ohio put on there. So if you go to any county website, Montgomery County or Miami County, you'll see on there voted or the original millage factor. And then you'll see what it's worth today, and it's much less because of the growth in the community.
Just 10 years, like I said, just 10 years ago, it was, the effective rate was 52 mils. Today, it's only 38 mils. So that effective rate has been reduced by the amount of people that moved in. So schools aren't seeing that excess dollars because the millage is only allowed to collect what was approved at the election, at the ballot.
So to go back to your question, what you were talking about, this is what a non-school TIF looks like. This is what the property was appraised at by the county auditor, and this is what it was generating. We put a TIF on there, those levies still get the money as if it was yesterday. The additional value, the increment, like it was discussed in the video, that change, that goes into a TIF fund. And then the yellow comes to go back to City of Heber Heights, the yellow section, we get to use those funds to reimburse either ourselves or potentially in an agreement with a developer, okay? Or make our debt payments. The red is a check where it says school district, a check that we write, the finance department in the City of Heber Heights writes a check to the schools to keep them whole. The schools, before when it was just farmland, only got this, that little red section right there. Now that the development's in, they get this, plus rewrite them a check in the bottom section there.
Who makes that determination?
Who makes that determination? It's based on, the county auditor determines what the value, just like they do at your home, okay? And then the county auditor says, okay, here's what it was yesterday, now it's worth this amount, and then what you see in that yellow and red, the county auditor gives to us. Now, we just don't put it in a fund, we actually put it in a fund named after that development.
Right, so when I look at your budgets, the year, one year to the next, I see, let's just use the rose tip for an example. I see an increase in value. Is that an increase in the property value you're talking about?
We're talking that top section, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I assume you invest that money in interest, so any interest income, would that be recorded in that figure?
You
Or
can,
is that in a separate?
that's a separate line item, so you can go, and we're about to go live, it'll be out pretty soon, but we'll have a transparency software that, we have one now, you can look at it and you can drill down to the actual penny we're spending money on. So if you wanted to see what interest was, you can type in interest on our current, or you go to our website, it'll take you to the software. You just type in interest, it'll bring it up.
Well, I'm
Type
gonna
in
see
TIF.
where the city's investing their money, I might want to invest.
Yeah,
You're doing good.
we have a lot of restrictions. You and I, as individuals, can invest in anything, but the state legislator only allows cities and townships and school districts to invest in certain things, so.
Yeah, there's a guy right now in Miami Township who's running to be township trustee. He is the treasurer of Miami Township right now. And you might have seen on the news that I was at an event last week, and I was talking to him, and he was a guest speaker as well. He's trying to take money from the township and invest it in gold. And, you know, it's, and I think I just read it was yesterday or might have been this morning, where they, you know, they were like, no, like that's not like official, you can't do that. That's just way too volatile, something to put money into, but he's looking to take township money and actually invest it in gold.
And that's one of the things the auditor, we get audited. They come in and audit our books, look through everything. We've had a clean audit for several years. And in the last two audits, which is a new thing, they have a transparency star. And that's based on public records requests that Tony's office operates. And then it looks at whether or not, on our finances, whether we have a clean audit. So it's 5 areas they look at, but you only get 4 stars. City of Heber Heights gets 4 stars. Between our finances, our investments, and handling public records requests. Anybody can come in and ask to see whatever. It's an open book. That answer your question? Okay.
It is complicated, and there's lots of different opinions out there in the city, and you just open a Facebook and then people understand it 15 different ways, and everybody's got their own opinion. So it's not something that's really easy to understand. It is complex because there's just so many things that work into that. But ultimately, that's what it is.
Well,
And-
I'm sorry.
No, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, I live out on Chambersburg, and I keep on seeing surveyors coming around and stuff. So I'm looking at unimproved as my happy home, and all of a sudden, something else is gonna be right next to me, and that's not where I came to,
So, and we're out in Chambersburg, right?
right across the street from her.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, so you're down, there's about 300 acres, and it's up right across the street
It's all around me.
from, yeah, and around, yeah.
But I see the surveyors coming, and it's okay.
Yeah, and that's, you know, the city has, we don't own any of that property. So I mean, that's all, we do know, there's the fruit farm down there. Burlington, yes, they are, so their parents actively do not want anything to do with it anymore. They're kind of done with it. And they've been actively marketing all that property. That's.
I don't think that's true, Mayor, because I had lunch with Ray.
So have you come out of Myers and you've seen kind of what's happening? They started clearing some of that area at the Woodley Mass on the west, on Myers. That area is, does a developer called Pride One. They're building, some apartment condo areas. It's called, I think it's the Villages of Hawthorne is what it's called. They're building kind of in the back section of that property first, and then as they move it towards the front, along Executive, there's plans there for kind of some retail space, retail center on the bottom, along with, you know, multi-family up above. So the renderings, the street scene, all the stuff that's happening there, is gonna be a really nice eye vision, kind of a line of sight as you're going Executive for kind of what we're going to do. And there's plans for, potentially a hotel there, some more sit-down dining restaurants. It's not just, you know, quick service, fast food restaurants. So that's all part of the growth that's happening. And these businesses just, they're not going to come. A restaurant is not gonna open up a place to build. It's not a, like Field of Dreams, build it, they will come. That's not how developers, that's not how businesses make their decisions on where they're gonna go. They make their decisions on where they're gonna go based on population, eyeballs, pocketbooks, discretionary income, all those things. That's what makes their decision when they decide they're gonna build and they're gonna take a risk to open their business. So that's really important that we create enough people and enough, you know, density of people that can support those businesses. And, you know, we've always been for a long time, people have called us, you know, we're a bedroom community. So you gotta think about where people are gonna go to lunch, or where people that are working. If, you know, daytime hours, restaurants aren't just open, and, you know, at night, people get off work. They're open during the day, so they depend on people who are taking their breaks, going on lunch, to come in and spend their money there. So collectively, we've met with all those business owners there, you know, with TJ Shops and some other businesses kind of becoming along with U77, Worthling. They all believe that the collection of businesses that come up there that offer sit-down food service is just gonna help everybody, because that's gonna draw more people to that area. How many of you have ever been to Middle Lane, not quite sure where you're gonna go? So you drive up there and you're like, okay, well, I'm not sure where I'm gonna eat, but I'm gonna go up there because once I get there, something will trigger that, you know, I know, oh, hey, I want, you know, El Toro stuff, I want Turkish stuff. So the more businesses that's up there, it'll draw more people, then they can decide where they wanna go. So those businesses don't look at other businesses coming to Executive as competition. They look at it as, this is gonna help stimulate the growth for all of us. And we've talked to those business owners up there real heavily about that. Yes.
So I actually have, there are a lot of gas stations coming. Does Huber Heights have the ability to say no to some of these gas stations because there seem to be a lot of them coming into Huber?
Yes, so the answer to that is yes and no. So it really depends on what the use is or what the current zoning is on that property. So I'm glad you asked this, because I personally can tell you there was nobody in the city more frustrated than me when I drove up Taylorsville and I saw a new Valvoline station. That, across the street from another one, right? That never came to council. We had nothing to say about that, because that property was already zoned commercially. it was okay for the business use that Valvoline needed it for. Therefore, all they do is file their permits in Montgomery County. We never saw that. In fact, we had no idea it was coming until they were there starting to do the work. So from a gas station perspective, if it's zoned for what they need, we don't need that. We don't get to see that. So in fact, a couple councils ago, if you have all seen the big hubbub about Rural King, that whole conversation was started and generated for a couple of different reasons. One of them was across the street, ABC Supply had already put in an application to do the exact same thing in planning commission. To fill up their parking lot full of all kinds of building materials and all that stuff out there, because they saw Rural King doing it. Once they saw the conversation happen at a council meeting and saw what, we talked about, that we weren't happy about that, then they've since pulled that from their, they didn't show up to the planning commission meeting, right? They pulled that application. So that's one business now we don't have to worry about looking like a flea market out in front of it at one of our busiest intersections. So, help me my train of thought here, so I went off on the.
Gas.
Yes, so gas station, so,
If it's not zoned appropriately.
yes, if it's not zoned appropriately, they have to come before council. Now, we did approve the Buc-ee's, because that was agricultural. The Wawa that's going on there, that was actually commercially zoned property, believe it or not. Even though it was a house. There was a business in there many years ago, it was a doctor's office. And then she was a psychologist, had worked in there for a while. So that parcel was actually zoned commercially already. So it got to us, we're talking about more of the detailed development plans, what it was gonna look like, and how the entrances were gonna be. It became more about the details rather than saying yes or no to the gas station. It was already commercially zoned piece of property. Back to the Valvoline and rechanging it. So that night, if you go back and watch that council meeting, what I talked about, I actually brought up the idea of retroactive zoning. Is there something we could do, and this is where I talked to Aaron, is there something we could do that would change the way our current zoning law reads, that if it's commercially zoned for a business, is there something we can do retroactively to make that business come before council? Because they don't have to do that now. That was really the crux of that entire conversation, was about, can we find a way that a business, even if it matches the zoning, can they come before council? Another classic example of that is the Ace Car Wash, the Flying Ace Car Wash on Merrily Way. Anybody remember what that used to be before Flying Ace? Long John Silver's.
Right.
I mean, was there Captain D's up there?
It was a fish place.
Yeah, so Long John Silver's. So guess what Long John Silver's zoning was? Commercial. That Flying Ace came in, they bought that property, that was a private business transaction, private real estate transaction. They bought that property, it was zoned what they needed it for, they filed the permits with Montgomery County, and they started building a car wash. Human rights had nothing to say about that. We couldn't. So yes and no. If a business comes in and they need a zoning change, that's what our charter says, our legislation has to approve the change of zoning. If the zoning matches what a building or a business wants to use it for, it bypasses us. So what I'm interested in doing is finding a way to retroactively zone property. That's probably a bad way to say it, but to be able to go back and make sure that if someone comes into the city and if the zoning matches, it still has to come before council for some type of approval. That's what I'm interested in. Yeah.
Are they gonna do anything with that place that's Farmer Dam, that's just fenced off and green space?
Oh yeah, on Troy, have we seen anything about that? Is there just past,
Next to Wawa.
just north of the Wawa there?
We have, just north on the same side as the Wawa?
Yeah, it used to be the
Yeah.
old Farmer Dan's farm. Somebody's got it fenced off and half of the fence built up there.
Yeah.
It's his son.
The-
It's his son.
There have been some, there's been some interest in that land. One was the most recent interest was a nursing home. But nothing really came of it other than just asking if we would be okay with that kind of use.
Right.
And one more question.
Yeah.
A big rock pile of dirt down there by snow shells, just breaking rocks. Big area. We don't do anything with that, or just leave it at that?
We got transfers.
Okay, good, yeah,
Yeah.
because that is something I promise you, all of us have been screaming and yelling about. for how long.
Yeah, we have legal orders on that property and, we're working to get that cleaned up. So it's going through the court process now.
What about further down, Floyd Pike 202, like there's the Princess, hair place, and then I think there's like an Asian restaurant. It just doesn't look as nice as the part of 202 that's right next to 70. So are there plans for like that little strip mall area and further down to, you know, move things that way?
Is that, are you talking like where the old Flicker Pallet, or?
Yeah, with the.
Yeah, where the Flicker Pallet used to be, yeah, the Imperial Pallet.
Just raised a place for.
Yeah, it's one machine. So interestingly enough, the guy that owns that property is the guy that owned, Marion Meadows. And you see what Marion Meadows, the old Marion Meadows Shopping Center used to look like.
Yeah.
But can we all admit that was a piece of crap?
Yeah.
So, at least from that perspective, the same guy that owned Marion Meadows owns Imperial Heights. However, he has, at least the look of the shopping center is better than what Marion Meadows used to be, right? So, part of what, when we talked about this whole idea of the Brant Pike revitalization, and kind of what we're doing with the government center, and the library was there, with the new apartments that are kind of going back behind there, the redevelopment of the shopping center there, which we've got some really good news. I mean, we've known about that shopping center, how we've increased the rent spaces on that thing now, where, you know, literally that development we paid for was by 2030, Alex?
Yeah, so we're gonna generate enough money from lease revenue to pay off what we did down there pretty quickly.
Yep. So we've increased, rent space on that. We have people knocking on the doors, and we've come down to the way, we've been selected about who we're gonna let in that particular, strip center. And, we've gone from what used to be rents there, $6, $7 a square foot, up to what now, $14, $15 a square foot?
Yes, for
Literally almost
starting.
double the square footage price. Now we've been there, and we've got more, you know, what I just call more, you know, higher servicing of a restaurant, or places have actually been in there. And, you know, our finances are pro forma, I mean, they'll be paid for. Yes.
When I moved in back in '78, this was the largest community of brick homes.
Yes.
Tell me, I see so many apartments coming up versus homes. Are we turning into the apartment center?
No, that's
No.
not.
Not at all, I think, so, there's a demand for housing in general. And what happens is, they're cyclical, right? So the reason we've seen an influx of apartment developers wanting to build apartments is because home mortgage rates are high. So they work opposite of one another. So when less people are buying homes, because the mortgage rates are so high, people are interested in renting them. Then, it just runs in these cycles all the time. As mortgage rates begin to come down, more people will be interested in buying a house. But what we're seeing is, what all the demographic studies tell us, is that young people now are just not interested, or as interested in homeownership as the generation before. Young people now are more, they don't stay at their jobs as long as those people used to, right? They're much more transient, so they're interested in renting. They're willing to pay a higher price in rent for the freedom of not having that mortgage tied around their leg. Every study of demographics of younger people, that's what it tells us across the board. And the people who know that better than anybody are the people who are spending $40, $50, $60 million to build those multifamily units. They would not be spending their money if they knew they weren't gonna have an uptick or an upswell of people to rent those places. And every time we open one that opens up, they can't build, they can't build them fast enough.
But as people are in apartments, they don't have that ownership. They don't take care of it as much as the owners do.
Well, so I think one of the companies we work with is, Metropolitan, and Metropolitan, and so when they build them, they also become, and they stay the actual owner of the property for a long time. They don't just sit on the building and sell them off. They are the Authentics development behind the new city hall and the library. They don't sell those off. So once they build their units, they maintain ownership, and that's what we need. We need them to own them, so they're interested in maintaining those properties, so people will continue to want to live there.
Does that mean the TIF money goes back to them to take care of, or do they keep up the HOA type things?
Whatever, that's all generated from what their rents are.
Okay, my second question was, when you come out of Myers and you go straight across, and you were talking about
Yes.
that development, is that going to connect into the next community over for an additional exit out of executive as opposed to
I don't
just-
believe that's on the plan now. But what we are interested in is making Huber Heights more connected. So it would not, as we move through this, having a way to be connected, at least from a bikeability or a walkability way to get people from executive on over, that would be there. So if you look now, if you go north, you can actually get from Carriage Trails as part of the road improvements, and what we've done, there's sidewalk now all the way. You can leave Carriage Trails on foot or on a bike, and you can now be on the sidewalk all the way to Meyer, across 70, before you even get up, south of 70 on 201. There's sidewalk that connects Carriage Trails all the way to Meyer now.
Yeah, I'm
So-
just looking at that community, they have the blockage of additional roads, somebody coming from the roads and taking off down there.
Sure, well, but the other thing is too, we don't we want connectability, but we also don't want to invade people's neighborhoods where we're just having more traffic now driving through their neighborhoods just as an outlet. The property that's being developed down on Chambers River across from Lexington Place. So that particular property, it's about 300 and some acres. There's, what's the housing units down?
288.
How many?
288.
So 288. Part of that is gonna back up to kind of where Sandal View and, kind of going up behind there. There was a big discussion about, can we connect the actual roadway? But the big issue was, some people on council were in favor of that, but the pushback we got was from the neighbors that lived in that area up there. They didn't just wanna see everybody drive through there in cars, with the kids and all those things out where it was gonna, put, especially, we all know people in Huber, for whatever reason, have an issue with, speed limit signs. So, that being a concern, we didn't wanna load lots of other vehicle traffic in those already existing neighborhoods. So our focus is really more on walkability and bikeability from a connection perspective. That's kind of what we're focused on.
My last question is the tips,
Yes.
that you said that money goes into, I didn't catch on everything that was up there, the structural stuff. It's not police and EMS and
So-
things like that, that comes back additional taxes on us. correct?
Yes, but even, so when we talk about how we just passed the renewal tax levies, that's still not enough money to cover what it costs to have those. The city still subsidizes our police and fire fund every year out of the general fund about $1.7 million. So the tax money that we collect on those levy increases, not levy increases, just to maintain that same level, that revenue that comes in, that still doesn't fully fund police and fire. We subsidize our police and fire funds out of the general fund. And all the general fund means is that's unencumbered money. That's money that the city can use to spend on the things that we need to. So if we have emergencies that come up, and we can actually use that money from the general fund to take care of those things. So we subsidize them.
Where's the general fund fit in with this scenario?
Well, so the general fund, this is just specifically to what the taxes are. So the TIF fund is technically what happens when the county gets the county collects your property taxes. The portion that the county is going to keep on the outside millage, on the voted levies, on the inside millage, they rebate that back to the city. And then we use that revenue to fund different things. And that part of the money goes into our general fund. What's the balance of the general fund right now? Close as you can get it?
Closer to hit about 23, 25.
So that's money that we have, that's kind of our savings account. So, for example, when we had our internet breach, our security breach at the city, that we spent $1.5 million, somewhere around there, getting that taken care of, and we completely redone all our computer systems. Well, that wasn't money, that money wasn't budgeted for. We weren't expecting that. So that money came from the general fund, as we just came in, emergency legislation, we said we'll fix that right away. We were able to jump right on that, because we have those reserves. So all general fund means is it's unencumbered money. It's not dedicated money to something else. So we have a capital improvement fund for police and fire fund, we have a water fund, a sewer fund, a streets fund, where there's money that we take out of the money we collect with some taxes every year that goes to those individual funds. And then when we have something come up in engineering, or we need to repave streets, that money comes out of those specific funds and it's budgeted for every year. The general fund is unencumbered money. It doesn't have a specific place that's being spent. So that's what we do. And our goal is obviously to grow general fund, as much as we can to make sure that we can take care of the services that we have. But the police and fire is still funded by $1.7 million every year out of that general fund. The police and fire levies that we have, they don't fund them. And John, have we ever, I just wanna make sure this gets clear. Has the city council ever decided not to fund a policeman or a fireman when a city manager or a police chief or a fire chief has come before council and asked for that? No. If it's needed, we fund it. When the chiefs ask us for personnel, we fund it. You're not gonna find bigger supporters of police and fire than myself and our city council. We know two things. People move, and one of them will say, we gotta work on it. People move where they feel safe, and where kids can get a good education. Outside of that, everything else takes care of itself. If you're a safe city and the kids get a good education, then a community will thrive. If you don't have those two things, your property values are gonna drop, people are gonna move away, you're gonna see lack of growth, and the biggest investment that you've ever made, most of the time, your house, you're gonna see those values. So we know it's important to make sure that everybody feels safe. And our police and fire they are the talk of the region. People come here to get training from other cities, other communities. There just is none better. Anywhere you go, there is none better. The problem with police and fire is, after 9/11, we had this huge swell of young people who wanted to get into police and fire service. Now you almost can't pay them enough to get someone to join police and fire, right? It's not, young people don't look at that as just as an option. So what's happening is, we're having to spend more money on personnel, because if we don't, other cities will come and try to poach our people. Because all this, it's not just Huber Heights, it's every city, everywhere, across the region, and the state and the country, it's an issue. There's just not enough people.
Historically, too, if you look back, part of the issue we run into right now, guys, is 70s, 80s, there was people, not both people in the household were working, you had volunteer time, you had volunteerism, you had, I'll use our surrounding communities as an example. There were 3 full-time departments in Montgomery County.
And real quick, if I didn't, I think I forgot to introduce him. This is John Russell, he's our city manager. So officially, and John has served the city in the fire capacity. John was a fireman, he was a fire lieutenant, he was one of our battalion chiefs. John became our city manager from our fire department, a long-standing EMS fire person in the city.
So, part of the issue is volunteerism. I'll take all of our surrounding communities at one time had volunteer workers. They had, most of them, some force of people who would respond from home to the station. And I'm gonna use Bethel as an example right now because they're having the biggest problem. So Bethel Township right now has 1 person working a day. 1. You can't do anything on any EMS incident with 1 person. It's impossible. The issue we have is Alex came from Beaver Creek Township, Washington Township, Kettering. You had some really big areas where they had part-time and volunteer workforces, and then they had a select few full-timers. Every one of those communities, 10 years ago, went to full-time staff and hired 30, 40 people at a time. So you take this pool of people and Alex and I.
The pool's getting smaller.
Yeah, so Alex and I both, we came through the fire service, and I'll just give you an example. When I tested to get into the fire service in the mid-90s, I was sitting in Wayne High School, Central State Auditorium, and big places with 200 other people to get 1 or 2 jobs. We just posted a list for a police officer a month ago. We have 6 applicants. 6. And we've got 3 openings. So, your odds of getting hired are pretty freaking, amazing at this point. So it is not just that there's not people doing it, it's the pool has been diminished so greatly here. And you're not wrong. I think we're going back that way, but enticing young people to take a different route besides college sometimes needs to really be a focus, because the trades are seeing the same thing. We're seeing, we routinely go to job fairs, welders, plumber, everyone's in the same, we all talk the same thing. There's just not this mass of workforce to fill these spots. So as the mayor was saying, our biggest issue now is how do we keep good people, and then how do we entice good people to come here?
Without
So-
lowering our standards.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we have one of the highest standards for our police and fire service. So how do you maintain those?
So we are working on those problems.
Those-
We know that's a problem, but it's not a Huber Heights problem. I just want you to, I want to encourage you, it's not a Huber Heights problem. It is a regional, multiple state problem. It is across the board. Florida, you've got your dollars, I mean, we're all seeing it. So I don't have the silver bullet answer that makes Huber Heights enticing for everybody to come here, but I will tell you, we've talked to the police chief, the fire chief. I'm open for all ideas. We're trying, you'll see this past year, we've started paying for, we'll hire a person in the police department and we'll send them to the academy. So we've never, before you couldn't get in the door here if you didn't have all your certifications. We've decided, you know what, I just wanna hire a really good person and I'll take them and I'll pay for them to go to school. Same way on the fire side. I want a good person, morally, wants to come to work, wants to be in Huber Heights, and I'll train them. I can train them to do what we want them to do. I just need good people. So I didn't mean to hijack the
So one thing,
conversation.
just real quick, I'll come right back to you, but explain on the fire service what we just did. The chief came to us.
Yeah.
And then John came to us with a recommendation.
So for years,
So listen to this.
here in Huber Heights, we've only hired, and I came here in 2000, we only hired firefighter 2, paramedic, you had to have all the certifications. That's about 18 months of schooling, okay? And Sinclair offers it. So we get 18 months of schooling and we would hire you. The issue we found, again, the pool was so low, is the fire chief brought in, it's a great idea. I wish I'd thought of it myself, I didn't. But he's like, what if we, again, search for really good, talented people that were in school and we entice them. So we created 3 firefighter positions, and those guys ride on the fire trucks only now. They are in school, and then we are paying them to go to EMT school and paramedic school. They get less pay, obviously, because they're not as fully trained, but it has been hugely successful. We've got 20 people last time applied, we brought 8 on just this past month, so hugely successful. And then we also created a firefighter EMT spot, which is now someone, and we'll pay their paramedic certification part of it for them to go get their certificate. So we created 6 new EMT spots and 3 new fire spots, and we really, where we were routinely seeing openings and vacancies and having a hard time filling them, we're full. Every position is full currently right now. So it's a police chief, same idea. We have 3 kids now in what we're calling an Explorer program, and they are Wayne High School kids going to the CTC, and they're coming on their off days to us to ride with us, get experience. We're on board. I gave the fire chief and the police chief direct orders. Find young kids and get them in this.
It's kind of like the equivalent of the ROTC.
It is. So our cops for years have had Explorers, okay? And those are high school kids. Usually, you saw the scouts coming in here. That was a program where if you were like 12 to 17 or 18, you could learn how to be a cop.
Yeah.
It's been hugely successful. We've built on that. Now we're trying to get these Explorers, instead of before where they would go somewhere else and work and then probably come back here. Now I've got one of them wants to be a dispatcher. We're hiring her as so I hear you. I just can't get enough kids to get involved in the programs, but we're working on it. I swear to you, we're trying to find.
I teach in high school, and I can tell you now, the young people, their #1 goal is to become a social media influencer and become a millionaire.
Yeah.
Trying to get their brains in any other direction right now is almost an impossible task. They all think they've got what it takes to become an influencer on TikTok, and that's where their brain's at. And there are business leaders, in fact, just the other day, the CEO of NVIDIA, one of the largest chip makers that's out there, he came out and said that he believes 100% that the next round of millionaires in this country will come from blue-collar workers. Because the welders and the sewer line people and the water people and anybody, construction trades, there just aren't enough people going in there that the demand will be so high for those skills. He is convinced the next round of generational millionaires will come out of the trades, not out of technology. That I couldn't believe that. And that's from the CEO of NVIDIA. So it is, thank God we're not on the scale like imagine Chicago Imagine LA and New York, where you have all the subways and the train stations and all their massive waterworks and sewer systems, where the baby boomers are retiring and there's just nobody to replace them. There is nobody, because we spent so much time in the last 30 years telling everybody you gotta go to college to be successful. And we spent so much time telling them they gotta go to college to be successful, that's what they did. But then they went there and they got degrees in underwater basket weaving and they can't get a job with it. That's the problem, and there's not enough people want to go into the trades, and again, there are people convinced that's where the next round of wealth is gonna be generated, is gonna be in the blue collar and the trades. There's just not enough people, and the demand will be so high, they've gotta pay that kind of money to get them interested. Yes?
Okay, when we started with this, you said this was the TIF, and then you were gonna go into the other new.
The NCA, the
different
New
way.
Community Authority, yes, and I think we have a video on that also. Yep.
Well, before that, I think he
sorry.
has a question,
Yes.
and then I have a question.
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just gonna reiterate, because I'm in the fire service, police service adjacent, so I work with the schools, all the fire academies, police academies.
Donate their portion of the land that we need to make that connection. So, it should be under construction next year.
What is that? What is Charles Gray?
So, Charles Gate is like right here, and it goes all the way to,
Charles
Right
Gate
past-
runs
right
from
past
Brayton to
Trowbridge.
202, yeah, but in the middle, it stops.
it stops.
Because
There's-
there's a property owner who just would never, ever,
It was an old farm guy who, well, a doctor owned it. It was a large piece of property. He would never sell to Charles Huber. He sold the front half off to a developer, and they put in, it's called Deer Gate. It's right off the Shaw. They sold 20 houses
About, yeah.
in there. So then he died, family sold it off, and another gentleman bought the back house and some of the acreage. And we approached, when I first got here, Aaron and I had some pretty long conversations, and one of them was connectivity. Like Charlie Huber, when he built, if he ran into a roadblock, he just went around it, and he just continued on and just did. He did. I mean, he was building so many houses. I mean, you'll see Harshmanville down by the Charles. I mean, anytime he ran into a roadblock, he just went around it and just kept on going. And so we're trying to now identify some of those areas and try and get some of those areas. Now, we've got to work the property, and we've got to get some of these things done, but I agree, we're trying to connect internally some of the streets to take some of the pressure off some of the other streets. And we know that's an issue, so we are actively working on those. So that is a priority for planning, and that's, I mean, they've got those directions from.
that's an EMS issue too, because we have a police officer in the back there, and needs to get from one part of that neighborhood to the next. Well, there's no connectivity right now. They gotta come back out, maneuver, get back out onto Shaw Road, and go all the way up Shaw and find another entrance back into another section where Charles Gate, there's already an entrance to Charles Gate off of, Charles Gate dead ends into the back of the water center, and then it comes out at 202. There's just this
You can
big
tell where Charles
piece of
ran into
lane in the middle, you can't
because he just
access it.
ended streets. And, yeah, seriously, he didn't build a cul-de-sac, he just stopped the street. And it's funny because a lot of them, if you look at the overhead of those, they were meant to connect at one time. And he ran into some issues. He was a genius, he really was. The man was amazing, but he was building so fast and so good, he didn't stop.
Now, I just became a Costco member, and when I joined, they said that they were thinking at one point about building in Huber Heights. Do you guys have any update or status on that?
So I wish we did. Because that has been a rumor for a very, very long time.
It has.
My wife is here this evening, and she has been at Wayne for 27 years, and one of the top managers in the region for Costco is one of her former students. And we talk to him quite often, and he has assured us, as soon as I know something, I promise you.
We have heard the same rumors, and there are some developers who have looked for areas for that. I mean, there have been. Alex, his previous job, he was a commercial real estate agent, and so we've heard the same rumors. There have been some talks. I know they've looked at areas, but nothing's. Landowners and developers couldn't come to an agreement, so right now that's all we've done.
And sometimes it happens, so, hey, has everybody else noticed that we're probably the only state around that has a road right now?
Yep.
You know why that is? Home Depot wanted to build. They wanted to build here, back behind, right off the 70 behind where Cedar Hill Furniture's at. So right along the interstate, right back there. They simply could not negotiate with the owners of Cedar Hill Furniture to allow the easement access for them to build back there. That's the reason we don't have Home Depot here. So the owner of the property said no, and therefore, what do you do? If you can't make a private real estate transaction work, it doesn't work.
How about Simon Cottage, is it really coming?
Oh, yeah, they're supposed to be open sometime, the next couple, 45 days, right? I think that's what it's in, yeah, so that is, yep, so that's coming, they're inside, they're remodeling, they're building it. One of our biggest issues that we have in Heber Heights is, and we've even talked about trying to find a way to outsource our building planning department, because we're at the mercy of Montgomery County. And Montgomery County is not known to be friendly on their permitting process. Montgomery County will come in and see that exit sign over the front door is off by 6 inches, it's not centered. I'm not exaggerating. They'll take that, write that as a kind of a gig on their permit, and when they go back down to the county, that goes to the bottom of the stack. Rather than just coming back out a week later and saying, okay, you fixed the sign, they've now got hundreds of other applications to go through before they come back and then check that off. It has been miserable trying to get the county on board with that. They're just extremely slow. And we've talked about what we could do to even have our own planning, our own building department that does the inspections and signs off on that. We've talked about outsourcing that work to somebody else. I mean, we know that that's an issue. And quite frankly, what we're seeing at China Cottage is that exact scenario that I just said.
Part of the problem too is we go back to police and fire, and is to be the head of a building department, you have to have certifications. And right now, those certifications are, would you say, in a dire shortage?
Oh, yeah, it's the same issue with police and fire. Finding plumbing inspectors, electrical inspectors, chief building officials is extremely
Yeah, the
difficult.
county's trying, and I don't disagree with what the mayor's saying, we've tried to address their issues. Aaron has done a phenomenal job. We try and get everybody in the same room and figure out what we need to do moving forward. Part of China Cottage's problem, though, was a contractor issue. So they hired a contractor didn't do what he should have done, so then the owner's left holding the bag. So some of it is delays on the county, but some of it also, we ran into the same problem at Marble Slab.
Marble Slab Company.
On Troy Pike. That young man, he had a contractor who, honest to goodness, just stole money from him, and he had to find a new contractor. Basically, he had a couple things done inside, had nothing else. So some of the delays that you see around town are not internal delays on our side. It's basically they picked the wrong contractor or something happened, and it's just taking longer. Trust me, these guys know. I want businesses to get the best they can get from our guys, our planning, our zoning, and anybody, and I don't want to be the detractor of why people aren't open.
No, you can't, people just can't wake up one day and say, I think I want to be a building inspector.
It's really, and even Montgomery County had, how long did they go? I mean, they were looking for a certified person for a while, and they were actually outsourcing it.
And they're down 3 or 4 inspectors
Yeah.
right now.
They've hired 3 inspectors.
Yeah.
Is that good? Okay.
So we feel you.
As of today.
I like China College. I feel you. I want to tell you just as soon as you do. Trust me.
You could have been there 6
I
months
want a
ago.
good option. I want a good
Next
sit
time
down
we'll
option
just
for
there.
that, so.
Jeff, what's the status on the property east of Bell Fountain, across from the
The developer has stopped talking to us. You're talking about,
yeah,
across the street by the, assisted living place or whatever?
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, so what the developer needs to get out of the lots for each lot for sale, the home builder doesn't think they can make those numbers work. So they are basically on hold until what the home builder told me is they're going back to look at their numbers again to see if they can bring their costs down. But at the moment, what the developer wants per lot just does not fit what the market is. So it's essentially on hold.
Is that Waverly Place? Is that what
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
We have another developer that's reached out to us about some land further down on Kittredge, Kittredge. Fishburg. And so there's an opportunity to connect those two subdivisions, so I'm gonna see if I can play matchmaker, for those two and get that off the ball.
Yes,
Hey, so can I say something positive? Is that okay?
of course.
So first I want to thank the staff. I think you have an excellent staff. And, if I ever make a phone call to them, couches in Endicott Road, somebody dumped it there, it's gone within a few hours. Like, they respond really quickly, thank you for that. Can talk about, EMS responding to me when I had my stroke, they saved my life, they were amazing. It's embarrassing when you have to do that, especially when you see them on the other side of it, but they gave me dignity and they were so good to me. So I thank them for that. Traffic, we all know, is an issue, but I'm aging, right? And I plan on aging in place where I am. I'm not leaving Huber. I don't like the traffic, but I don't wanna go to Dayton. I don't wanna go to Harrison Township. I'm not gonna go downtown by the mall to go shopping. Everything I need is right here. It's here. It's available to all of us, even though it's an inconvenience with the traffic. I really am happy with the senior center, with the opportunity to go to my local drugstore, with my neighbors, with all the things that I have. So even though there are things that, we wish was different, because I'm watching different things, I've been here 25 years myself, it improves my quality of life. And when you talked about a walkable experience over by Lexington Place, Scott and I appreciate that. We have property over in that area. I do weddings there. I do a lot of kids' activities at the pond where old Farmer Dan's Pond used to be. That's now our nonprofit, and we serve kids and families there. When they told me you were expanding the road, who am I to stop that? Even though it's hurting me, I don't want them that close to my pond. But we're gonna have a sidewalk for the kids and they're gonna be safe. So I can't be selfish. I gotta let it happen, right? Because who am I when we're talking about safety for the children? So there are things happening that are inconvenience to us, but it's the way it has to be. So I thank you guys. I just wanted to say that. I hope you don't mind. I kind of went off, but it's just who I am, and I just felt like I needed to say how I felt.
I appreciate it. We'll go here and then back. Yes.
I've been here for 3 years, guys, and I stayed quiet in my little Hubbard Drive house and didn't say anything for 3 years. And I met her, and she changed my life. I give money to the community in different places, and I am tired of sitting quiet, and I want to help. And so, my name is Lori on Facebook. My name is Loretta. Please reach out to she'll get with me if we need anything and any information, but I can tell you, I've been watching huge into politics, hate politics. I've been watching. I'll be honest with you, I've been watching. And I don't like the other guy. So I'm voting him regardless, but I like him. A lot of people may not.
I appreciate it.
But I like him because I had an idea and others on the other side made fun of me. And he said, I'll go. And to me, that meant a lot. I don't know him. He don't know me. I'm somebody that was quiet in my Hubbard house. I haven't said a word. My husband was hit on Walmart and dragged many, many yards. And your fire and your police officers and a police officer, you probably know what I'm talking about. A police officer and his wife stayed with me. And that is community. And we never had that. We're not from here. We're from the South. And that's community. When a police officer's wife will stay with you because you're upset because your husband got dragged. I mean, that is, people weren't from here as they're from Dayton. But this is the community, guys, if y'all want to be here. And I don't know that other dude. I've only known him. And I didn't know him. Like, I knew something was different. This is a good community, you guys. It really is. Not moving, I'm not going anywhere.
Well, we're glad you're here. Oh, yeah.
That was nice.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
So we were able to help financially with that, kind of make that happen, and council decided to do a good use of funds for the public good. Yeah, that's all for the Veterans Commission. Well, there's also things, the even down to the, you know, what's interesting is, so some of you seen just a post I recently about the clock, so anytime that you look, anytime that you
Y'all make
look at
weird-
the positive
Your
responses,
tongue, your people make fun of
they
you, so
always
you know.
come from the little things that
I'm
make our
Facebook.
quality of life better. Where people like to
I
feel
probably have more
good
money
in
than
the
all.
space that they're in. And since I've been the mayor, three of the biggest things that got the most community support, when you think of all the things that we've done, all the things that's happened the last 3 years, three things. The banners that went up on the poles, when those first went up, and being kind of cycled in and out based on the season. People went crazy over that, in a good way. The brick intersections, right, at some of the major intersections where the new staff, mask arm is gonna go. So those intersections, when the first one went in at Brant and Chambersburg, that lit up everybody on the community pages, they were excited and happy about that. And Jan's Clock. So when you look at what yeah, Buc-ee's was big too, but it's those little things that make people feel good about where they're at, right? It's about, how do I feel when I'm in the space that I'm in? And right now, and people feel good about that. And we know that's true because we got Facebook data to show, right? Somebody wants to talk about their neighbor having a yellow sign, or having to cut their grass and all that, yeah, people get angry, people get mad about that. People on Facebook like to make jokes just because they're after the like emojis and all that kind of stuff, because it's kind of the funny thing to do, but ultimately, people still like to feel good about where they live. And those small things are what does it. Part of we tasked Public Works with making sure, like the flowers and things like that, that are, when you get off the interstate, to make sure those are all up to date and look nice in local places. Going north on 202, all of the hanging baskets going that way. And now, that was popular, people love that. Next year, it's budgeted, that's that type of thing you're gonna see it, all down Ultra Pike, all down Brand Pike. So those beautification areas are gonna be fixed, and those type of things are gonna happen, because that's what people feel. People like feeling good in the space that they're in. So much that is what drives all the attention when something like that happens. So our goal has always been the south end of town. But we have to earn your confidence by showing the people that we can borrow money, we can invest in our city. I've always said from day one, I've said, and it's still my stance today, if we as a community are not willing to invest in ourselves, why in the world would anybody else invest their dollars in us? And they're just not. And we know that because of all the time period where it was stagnant, nothing was going on, or we was afraid to spend a penny, and we saw what was happening. Once we started making the decision to invest in ourselves, other people wanted to invest in us. So now that we have proof that we can do that, we had a library decided they wanted to go there. We had other council members who wanted to take half the community park and put the library down there. And all the while the library is saying, we want to be on Brant Pike, we want to be part of Brant Pike. So that's where the library is at now. The library, we have people who criticize us for taking Marion Meadows, for buying that property. But if we didn't, where would the library be? And what people don't understand, is a library levy was passed 10 years ago. And you guys have all been paying property taxes to a library levy, and you were the last city to get a library. And if we didn't take Marion Meadows and buy that to redevelop that area, that library still wouldn't be there. And I literally had to have a conversation with, at that particular time, the director of the Montgomery County Library Association. I talked to him before he retired, and I said, if you don't build us a library, I'm gonna go to the news and I'm gonna ask you to refund all of our taxpayers their money back. They've been paying for 7 years that you haven't built a library. That's how that happened. So now that that's taken place, and it's taken a while, but now we have a model how that works, we can continue that redevelopment and reinvestment further down Brant Pike, further towards the south of the county, to do the things that we've done in Parktown. Now, if we bought that property and it still looked like crap, and there wasn't a library, the type of things are happening up there, how much confidence would the residents have in this council that we could actually do something like that further on down the road? There wouldn't be any confidence. We couldn't come to you and say, this is what we wanna do, this is how we wanna invest your dollars to help grow and make the community look better. But we've done that. The proof is in the pudding, and we got a lot of pudding. So that's what allows us to be able to continue that mission, to grow the city and expand and make it better the further south you get on our Old Turnpike and one Turnpike. So there's still, stay tuned, there's still lots of good things happening and lots of good things.
We could hear a little bit more about the NCA.
Yes, so let's fire it up, good time. Alex, run the video, Alex.
Way to get him going.
You're welcome.
Great job, Greg.
Good transition.
Huber Heights is growing, and with growth comes the need for roads, utilities, parks, and more. So how do we pay for that without raising taxes? Let's talk about a tool cities across Ohio are using: the New Community Authority, or NCA. A New Community Authority is a public-private partnership allowed under Ohio law, Chapter 349. It creates a special district, kind of like a zone, where fees help pay for things like streets, sidewalks, sewer lines, public buildings, streetscapes, music centers, and multi-use bike paths. It allows cities and developers to share the cost of new infrastructure. The people who benefit from the improvements help pay for them over time, instead of requiring large upfront investments from the city or new taxes for everyone else. Why use one? Because NCAs support smart growth. They help cities grow responsibly without shifting the cost of new infrastructure onto long-time residents. Instead, new property owners or businesses in the NCA area help fund the improvements through a community development charge. Cities across Ohio are using NCAs to make big projects possible. Dayton used one to revitalize the historic arcade. Columbus used NCAs to build the Crew Stadium. New Albany has used one for decades to fund roads and parks. Cincinnati's Banks project between the Reds and Bengals stadiums was made possible by an NCA. Here in Huber Heights, a petition was filed in July 2025 to create an NCA. Since no one lives in the area yet, the NCA board includes appointed members from city council and property owners. As development happens, residents and business owners will eventually have a seat at the table too. The NCA can collect fees, called community development included charges, which are small fees that show up on purchase receipts from the businesses in the NCA and by residential property owners within the NCA. These charges fund public improvements in the NCA area. NCAs are subject to state law, transparent financial rules, and most importantly, public oversight. Bottom line, NCAs make it possible to build complete livable neighborhoods faster with high quality amenities without burdening existing taxpayers. To learn more about how NCAs work in Huber Heights and how they shape future development, visit the city website or contact our Economic Development Department.
So Alex, I'll let you, you want to have a question, want to talk about that? Somebody has a question, Greg?
So yes, there, as you saw, there's a fee for the district or the NCA area. And so if you go to buy something in that retail area, there's a small charge or fee. So if you went down to the arcade, anywhere around the Dayton Arcade, there's a coffee shop down there. You went into that coffee shop, got your receipt, and looked at it, you'll see that there was an NCA charge on that cup of coffee that you bought. So that's how it works. So it's the people using those areas that will pay for the public improvements or growth within that NCA. Sorry.
What, the fee is a percentage, like a sales tax?
So you can do it a couple ways. There could be a percentage, could be a flat fee, but hasn't been determined. In fact, nobody in here, city council or mayor or myself or Aaron or John makes those decisions. There's an NCA board that votes on it and what those fees or assessments are gonna be.
And you're saying that the development on the north side of Executive is an NCA.
So the properties that are essentially vacant are currently in the NCA. I've petitioned to be a part of it. The couple other businesses that are up there, we can't force anybody, let me say that. We can't force anybody to join the NCA. So we can't make the whole city an NCA and force every resident here to join the NCA. It is up to you whether you join the NCA as a property owner. So there are other property owners along Executive who have expressed a lot of interest in joining the NCA because you see the benefit of the money being returned. So the people that go into the restaurants there, or stay at the hotels, or live in one of the apartments, know that money is coming back to help support the bikeways, the walkability, those kind of things.
Does an NCA have to be a new development, or could we take the existing area, as an example, let's say the Fishburg, the Brent Pike, let's say between Fishburg, Chambersburg, slightly north of that, and get those businesses to join the NCA to revitalize that area?
They could ask to join. Yeah. So
It have to be created first?
well, it's already created, right? So the NCA is already created. The board now has to meet, and then property owners can choose to join the NCA. So for your example, absolutely, a developer or a strip mall, or anywhere in the city could say, we want to join, we want to take advantage of this. And they would actually go to the NCA board and petition to be a part of the NCA.
In fact, I mean, that's already happened twice now with TJ Chumps and Forkwood. Those are already existing buildings, are already up there, and they petitioned to join the NCA because they see the benefit coming back to them and what's happening there. So they've made that decision after the fact, and we couldn't force them to do that, but they wanted to join it, and they were existing businesses.
To answer your question, the city of New Albany, their entire city is NCA. So they took the entire city under their umbrella. Now again, can't force anybody to join, but those that join, then they take that money and they turn that into
Streets,
parks. They helped with some infrastructure builds and things like that, but yeah, we could overlay it on certain areas, it's just, we can't force a business to join. But if they saw the value, so I think part of what you're saying is part of what he's saying is, if we were gonna revitalize that area and make it better, then yes, we could petition, they could join, and then we would use that money to help, some of that.
And if you look, one of the big things about the Albany, so now we're at money with reinvested in community infrastructure. And I'm not sure if you've been up that way, but you know what's in New Albany, it is Google, Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, all those tech companies, that's where they're all going up there because that money was reinvested, upgrading infrastructure that allowed all those businesses.
Their NCA's been around for years, so they started.
90s.
So they had this, they were the first ones to really utilize it to really make some drastic changes to their area. So some of the other ones you saw are more recent, the Banks project down at River Friends and those things. Those are newer NCAs that have been used. Anybody locally using NCAs?
Yeah, so City of Dayton's got an NCA. Other communities around us, City of Beaver Creek is forming an NCA. Townships can form NCAs as well, so everybody's looking at it as another tool to help, offset going back to the taxpayers and passing. West Carrollton is revitalizing everything along the river. You've probably seen a lot of stuff in the news about that. City of Xenia, since '74, in the center of town, they had that big tornado come through in '74. Have not been able to do anything with that development. They formed an NCA, and now they're putting, they tore down everything, and they're putting nice townhouses in, reconnecting all the streets, walkability, a lot of retail's moving in. So these are just some projects locally that are helping revitalize some areas.
You're talking about some of the development that was going into that area on the north side of Executive. But what hasn't been mentioned was the so-called indoor entertainment venue. Can you speak to that and what that might be, and is that part of your NCA program?
Yeah, so I'll touch on all this and then kind of fill in some details, but, so to start with, nothing is set in stone, right? I mean, this is an undertaking, it's obviously a big undertaking, it takes a long time to plan that, so we have started the process of kind of what that looks like. We've passed legislation that has allowed, I think it'll be coming up probably in the next 45 to 60 days to go out to bid for some of the site work and things like that. So, but a lot of the details about that particular venue is still being worked out. It's a long time ago. But yes, that will be part of the NCA. That is part of what the other hotels that are interested, the other restaurants that are interested.
Now, is that development on city-owned land like the Rose?
Yes. Yes, so in fact, so the city purchased, there were 2 farms up there. What was I always get their names confused, it was the Lehman farm. So kind of where the barn is at right now, it's up there, that is a good approximation of where the new venue would go. So the city paid $3.875 million for that 52 acres. And we still have, how many acres left to sell up there?
20 and change, about 23.
So the whole property was only 52 acres. We still have 23 acres to sell, and we've already recouped every single penny that we spent on that land. So the businesses, the apartment development, all that, the city is whole on what it costs to buy the property, and there's still 23 acres left to sell. The sheets on the corner of Brady Executive. So one of the things we talked about, that was, city-owned property. We did make the decision to sell that to Sheets, but one of the reasons we did, Sheets paid us $1.6 million an acre for that corner.
Wow.
There's profitability in gas stations. We paid $3.875 million for the property. We had 1.6 acres that they wanted, that they paid $1.6 million an acre for. And we only paid 3.8 for all of it, for all 52 acres. So, good return on investment. Good return on investment. And we have people interested in the other 23 acres. Those are, so it's not like it's just set empty without people talking about it.
And that doesn't include the acreage that is planned for that indoor entertainment?
Does not. Well, yeah, it does include that, but how much are we looking for?
So the indoor facility would be on about 20 acres and the remaining would be for development.
And that is restaurants and hotels.
Yeah.
But you would sell that acreage to whoever would be interested in developing that venue? Is that I'm trying to, where's the cart and where's the horse?
So the city owns that land. The city already owns land, so we would be in charge of building the venue. And then the other land around it, then we would sell at market rate for the restaurants and hotels that want to go.
So the indoor venue would operate similarly to the way the Rose operates?
The exact same. The financial model, everything about the new
Except it's
venue.
TIF versus NCA.
Yeah, yes, but it will operate the exact same way. The funding mechanism, the way the funds come in, what the funds are used for, everything is.
How is it determined that would be, I'm expecting it to be successful, but I'm interested in how is it determined that would be an appropriate development for that land?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll go backwards a little bit. So you talk about the Rose. The Rose was the idea of some council members at the time and was floated to some the way entertainment works, there's a couple groups around the state that run venues and acts in. So they went down and talked to a couple different groups, if you will.
Potential
partners.
Yeah.
Yeah, they found a company out of Cincinnati, Mimi, who it's an arm of the Cincinnati Orchestra. They also run Riverbend, PNC, the Brady, which is an indoor facility. So I will tell you this, just because I've been here a long time, and when that all started, I think Mimi was a little bit unsure of how that would work and how the rows would work. I will tell you, since we built it, it's been profitable from day one. We've been able to turn money around. So basically, we've taken TIF money and turned it around and put it in the general fund to use for other things, which we could not. So someone asked here earlier, could we use TIF money to hire a fireman? No. But I could put $1.6 million in the general fund, and guess what I can do with that? I can pay a fireman. So it's a unique model. We're not unique in here, but it's been around the state for a while. So we went that way. Well, this idea, Mimi actually approached us, and they're like, look, we're having such success in Cincinnati with our indoor facility.
Which is the Brady Center.
Which is their Brady Center. They run that in downtown, same on the banks between the two stadiums. So they came to us and they said, look, there's an opening in the market in this region that isn't being filled. And they own some other places around the country. And they're like, Dayton would be a really good market to put a music center, and we could send acts there all the time. They've been very successful with the Brady. So they actually approached us, and they're like, hey, what do you think? Could we partner together? We are still, I promise you, in the development phases of what that looks like and how that looks, but right now, all the numbers look promising. That we could fund the music center. The NCA looked like the best model for us, because again, the people using that area then would help pay for that infrastructure instead of the other way around, which I didn't believe it till my finance guy showed me. It's looked in a lot of other places, the Crew Stadium and some of these other things. So once I saw it, I'm like, man, this could really be potentially a good thing. So that's kind of where we're at. We're in the initial phases of what does that look like, but that's where the NCA came in, was to help with that venue for sure. Yes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. And I apologize if I didn't.
No, you're good. Appreciate it. Yep.
You have anything to add?
We'll come back.
No, you pretty much nailed it. I mean, we're the sweet spot market for bands who are traveling, say from Pittsburgh to Chicago or through to Indianapolis for weekend shows. We have this, and that's what Mimi said, you're missing the opportunity for kind of the weekday shows as they travel to big tier markets. And so we think that we have that real opportunity aimed right off of 70.
And just one more thing I want to add about that. It isn't just going to be a space for music. We have our own, we have the ability, it's going to be our own convention space. So large, massive wedding venues. We've had companies approach us that put on weddings that don't have any place in Dayton to go. They're renting out mass venues in Cincinnati. They're going to Columbus. Yeah. So this isn't, the fact that it's covered, there's all kinds of opportunities.
So it's going to be called the Huber Heights Convention Center.
Hopefully something catchier than that. We'll figure something out maybe.
But there's so much opportunity in an indoor space like that.
Yeah, the mayor's not wrong. So
Caterers,
we started talking to
all these people reach out to us.
When we talked to developers around there, people want to bring restaurants and things like that. That was the one thing we compared is, we need a space where we could hold, enough to seat 300 people to have a ball or a wedding or whatever it is. So when we talked to Nita about that, we're like, yeah, that's a great idea, because our actual, potentially be weekdays, and then you can have weekends. So I totally missed that point too.
Yeah, I mean, so
this is hopefully going to be a multi-purpose facility.
Is there some ideas for what the anticipated seating capacity would be?
Right now, the schematic design is for a music event. It would have the capacity of about 3,500 persons, but that would include standing on the floor as well. Seated capacity is about 1,500.
So this happens like a lot of the local schools. You have the graduation ceremonies at Wright State, and we go to the Nutter Center. This would be able to, hold a graduation ceremony. Again, large weddings, convention space. We've already had people who've heard about it, reached out to Alex, who were looking for space to hold their conventions. And so there's such an opportunity there that is so much bigger than just a place where you're going to have music different nights of the week. So we're looking at all that.
Seating capacity is closer to 2,500. The parking is around 1,500. But the total.
We've seen a lot of numbers.
Yeah, the total capacity is about 3,500 persons. That's what the sweet spot is.
We're gonna, here, and then we'll go back to here.
So I'm assuming that it would be something like what Sharon does with their convention. because-
Similar, but it's gonna look a little more like Brady.
Okay.
If you've been down to Cincinnati, it's gonna have a little more of that look and feel.
Two stories.
And two, how do we, and I know this is not the full wheelhouse of council, and staff, but how do we take this success that the community is seeing, translate that? Because of one of the two things you say, what are the first two things people look for when they go to a community? Safety and schools.
Sure.
2005, we haven't passed 11. How do we translate and get those 4 votes instead of being short?
Well, I tell you what, if you pay attention to my Facebook, there was not a bigger champion than Trump.
Oh yeah, I do.
I think some of it is
how do we
education.
translate the success of the city?
Right.
And people they see taxes going up because we also haven't passed levy since 2005. We can't collect all the revenue that we need to collect for the schools.
And now you got the initiative that says we should do away with property taxes.
Right, so there's this whole, but again, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Property tax, do you see what they're talking about as far as sales tax?
10% or 10%, 18% sales
Yeah,
tax?
close to 20%.
Sales tax is in the 20s and income tax.
Income tax, 10%.
Income tax after I
Yeah,
saw,
I mean, people need to realize that-
about 13 to 15% income tax along with a 22 to 25% sales tax.
Those costs are never going up, those costs aren't going up. Now we're gonna find different ways to fill that gap.
And the last we checked, look, property taxes still pay for some of that stuff, and a lot of, not just here, but in a lot of communities, people like when they pick up the phone about 911, that somebody answers the phone, but they also like when somebody actually shows up. So, it is going to be.
It's tough.
So how can we take this message of success with the city and make that translate to success with the schools? Because again, I moved to Huber Heights when I got married.
Sure.
And I came from Springfield.
Yeah.
But they can pass a levy. Why is it that a successful as successful as we are as a city, how can we help? And I know it's not you all's job, but how can we help that trend?
That's the magic bullet. I wish we had an answer for that. I wish we do, but also
The answer is to show them those statistics as to what would happen if you did away with property taxes. How you would end up having to fund the same services.
I think the education of the village that Alex gave tonight too is important to understand too. I think people don't always understand voted on millage and how that spans over time and the effective rate. I don't think a lot of people understand that.
That's a big issue.
Yeah, it is.
People know what
When
the village
you see
is.
1
Village
million
is
is like
effective.
Sure.
$100
Right.
per 100,000, it's like, okay, wait a minute, and my taxes going up by $200-$300.
You're right.
And the fact that once it's done, the property tax, the value of the house goes up, which would affect the property taxes. But then people don't understand, I have people calling me, when they're, oh my gosh, the taxes are going up, that my property value went up this much, my taxes are gonna be, $7,000. I'm like, no, because they only tax it, they only tax it 35%, so not the 100%. We have people that don't understand, because it's just escrowed into the mortgage and they pay it, but they don't really know how that money is divided up. They don't know how it's calculated. They just get they get their statement, they pay the mortgage, and then that's it.
Well, I tell you on the voting sheet, because we vote early, it is not explained sufficiently. It is that 1 meal equals $100 per $100,000 of the price of your home, or something to that effect. It is not.
And we fight this. There's laws about how ballot language can look, and we fight all the time. We want things to be easier for people to vote on and understand, but the language that has to be presented on a ballot, there's attorneys that are involved in that, and state law, and it's not able to be as clear as we'd like it to be.
Levi, I just want to comment on what you had said about how we do the schools. Our mayor mentioned we have this House Bill 920. I'm going to grossly oversimplify that by stating that House Bill 920 puts a cap on school income without capping school expenses. So the best way to solve this would be to all of us to start writing letters to our congressman, pointing that out to him, because I doubt he understands it, I've met him.
Not many of them understand it really.
I will tell you, I know for sure.
Yeah.
They don't, because John and I were in Columbus and had a conversation in the halls of the Ohio Capitol building. And I had to explain House Bill 920 to the state rep, and he had no idea. I spoke in front of the committee, and I told them, they were all worried about the conversations around TIF revenue and CRAs and taking money from schools. The representatives even sitting on the committee didn't understand what House Bill 920 was. And I told them all, if you want to fix school funding, go back and read House Bill 920 and find a way to fix that, and then you'll fix school funding. None of them had any idea. The chair of the committee looked at me and said, "You've given us some homework." Didn't she, John?
She wrote it down, she's like, I'm gonna go back and look at this.
If we could eliminate House Bill 920 as our community grows, so our school income.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I
And if you ever talk to somebody who seems to be in the know, they can explain why it was even concocted or passed. I will tell you that it was Governor Voinovich who passed it, and he is the same one that, when he passed away, his estate left money to various colleges around the state of Ohio to change names of buildings for schools of education to the Voinovich School of Education. Go figure. I have no idea where this guy's head was at. And he was not even in state government at the time. He was the auditor of Cuyahoga County. Now, the auditor is supposed to be the one who balances the budget of the county. So,
You know, one of the things I think that's an issue too, and it's, I know a lot of people are for term limits, and I understand why. But the downside to term limits that people don't think about, our state rep level, they're running for re-election every 2 years. And they're termed out at 4 terms, so 8 years is as long as they can serve. So these state reps who are making these decisions on our behalf, what's happening is, they are only concerned about 2 years ahead, and that's it. They can't see the forest through the trees. They don't have to live with the consequences of their votes, because after 8 years, they're gone. The only thing they're worried about is passing legislation that makes all of us feel good to re-elect them every 2 years. If they had to stick around and be responsible for the consequences of their votes, that might change. But it's very easy to say term limits, right? Because we don't want the same people out there serving all the time for so long. But all we're doing is, we're not giving them any long-term incentive to do the right thing. They're only incentivized to do what gets them to the next election 2 years from now. And that's what we're dealing with. That's what we're dealing with. This whole idea of the property tax is nothing. Every single one of them know that's a bad idea. But guess what the message of eliminating property tax does to the voters? Riles them up, gets them to show up at election time and vote for them. And that's all they're worried about. They don't care what happens 9 years from now, because they're not gonna beat it. I'm a little fired up on that.
Well, if you lose your house because you can't afford the new taxes because your taxes just doubled because your house just doubled in price, doesn't have to do with the school or anything else, because the school's not gonna benefit from it, but the person who's trying to live in that house now loses it.
So I think
That's where the problem is.
I don't disagree, but what's gonna happen is that money doesn't just, the need for that money doesn't just evaporate when the property tax evaporates.
Right.
So what's gonna
It's
happen
just
is-
done differently.
But what happens if your house payment like I know in my house, I think I pay about, it's just over $400 a month. So I'm paying roughly $4,800 a year of property tax. So about $400 a month. So if I eliminate that $400 a month off my mortgage bill, what happens now if everything I buy and everything goes up and my income tax goes up? Toward now I'm gonna pay $600 a month. I might as well, I still can't afford my house payment, even if my house payment goes down by the $480 or $400 a month, because all my sales tax and my income tax went up. So that money the need for the money isn't gonna go away just because the property tax goes away. All they're gonna do is shift it to collect it via some other vehicle.
Right.
I mean,
But at least you'd still have your house.
Well, maybe not,
And-
if all of your other expenses went up and you couldn't afford your house, if you had to pick eating versus paying your mortgage, you're still gonna choose eating. So if your expenses go up, whether it's your house payment or every other expense you have goes up, your monthly
have-
rent is still the same.
You still have a choice on what you buy. But when your house goes up and you bought it at a certain price, expected to pay certain taxes, and then all of a sudden, nothing that you've done makes it 3 times, 5 times worth more than what it was before, your taxes go up, doesn't help the schools, doesn't, the schools are the ones that suffer because of the fact of the way it's funded. It needs to be funded differently. It doesn't have to be through property taxes. It could be funded differently.
I'm in education, and I don't disagree.
I was in education too. I ended up leaving education. But I do know that.
And we'll wrap up, but I was happy to see there's lots of schools that are joining a class action lawsuit against the state of Ohio regarding the voucher program. Because literally all the voucher program is doing is taking dollars from your property taxes, and there's no limitations on who can get those vouchers. We are siphoning money. Our state legislatures have allowed us to siphon money out of the public education system and funnel into private vouchers to the tune of over $1 billion. $1 billion a year. And you could be a family making $250,000 a year, and you can still get a voucher because there's no income limits on getting that voucher. So we are siphoning money away from our public schools for vouchers, where people who can afford to send their kids to private schools are taking the vouchers anyway, and the state is letting them have it. So the entire system is screwed up. But there is a class action lawsuit from different schools that are jumping on board, because the state constitution, the state is actually mandated to pay public education. And they're siphoning money from public education into private education for people who can afford already to send their kids to private education. The whole system is a joke. But it isn't gonna change unless all of us collectively get together and decide that we want enough change at the state level to make that happen.
Hey, just one quick question on another, changing the subject a little bit. I noticed on all of these overpasses on the newest bridges, cities and communities have their names in the bridge work railings going across there. What can we in City of Huber Heights do to get Huber Heights on our 2 overpasses?
Well, actually, we actually have more, and we haven't looked at that.
Yeah, that's on our to-do list for next year.
Councilman Webb wants to build the bridge like it's at Wright State over 675. In between 201 and 202, from the Rose area, all that section back over the highway, and that other neighborhoods. And I think Donna's looked through all kinds of different grant funding and the ways that can be done and built, and it really isn't that big of a deal. We just gotta.
We do want to make it look better, and personally, even the interchanges, Mike Gray does a phenomenal job as a public works guy, but I've told him, we want to make it look nice. I think that he worked on the 202 interchange, it looks really nice, and I'd like the 201 to look like that, but you're right. We would like to improve some of the things. I know when we talk about street lights going south, I've lived here a long time. I want the south to get prettier and nicer. We're working on that. Yes.
So I was hoping to hear more about the NCA and how the funding and stuff gets into there. Is there going to be another forum where we talk about that?
I think our next couple conversation will happen sometime in December, probably that second or third week of December.
We're gonna put a video out, and then if you do have questions, if you wanna email me or Alex, we can try to get you some information. We're gonna put that video out on the website too, so it'll be out there for people to view and see. And if there's questions.
Well, that video's already up.
Yeah, it's already up.
What's that?
The video's already up.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did it quick.
Well, I would just like to thank you, Mayor, and the assembled council people for putting on this meeting. I've enjoyed it.
We're glad you came.
It was very
We're trying to organize it. We're glad you
Thanks for letting me know.
Everyone be
Oh,
there.
yeah. I'm glad to see you.
Just an environment to feel comfortable to come in and just sit down.
My wife forgot where I was at.
Are you cooking on the way out?
I'm gonna grab a cookie when I go out. I'm sorry. I am Tom McMasters. I don't know if you know me.
I'm Alex.
Alex, I'm sorry. I am taking.
Oh.
But what's your position? Something in finance?
I'm the assistant city manager.
Oh, assistant city manager.
Yeah.
See, it's bad on I don't see that extra fees on parking and sales tax type things are going to be able to fund big music centers like that. And I get the impression that you can take the TIF dollars, your CRA stuff, and throw that into the funding source for your NCA. Is that correct or incorrect?
So I don't know if they have that legal authority, because that's two different entities, right? So we put the TIFs on at CRAs as the city.
Right.
The NCA determines what those fees are going to be.
So
two different things.
The NCA can have fees in there, like sales tax and stuff like that.
Well, it's not. You can't do a sales tax.
Well, it's the same concept, right?
It's a fee. Yeah, it can't be like it's not a tax.
Whatever.
Yeah. No, I mean that's what the law says. I'm just telling you.
So
what the
you
law
have
says.
a 3% fee when you pay for your restaurant bill.
Potentially, or it could be a flat fee,
Whatever.
or whatever.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
not determined by us at the city.
Right. But inside your application and stuff like that, it talked about TIF being one of the sources for the authority. So,
And what were you saying in one of the?
in the petition for the NCA,
Yeah.
it talked about TIF revenues being one of the sources for paying off the bonds that are associated with the.
Yeah, and that would be an agreement. That could be used. TIF revenue could be used, but that have to be an agreement between the city and the NCA. Yeah, we can't just say we can't tell them what to do, and they can't tell us what to do. Right. So they're two separate kind of entities. They have a separate board that is made up, as like it said in the video, of one council member and business owners. Right. So then those they determine that. Now, if they come to us and say, "Hey, we think this, we should do something like you're saying," we have to have an agreement, right? We have to have an agreement between NCA and the city.
Right. Okay. So yeah, if the city wanted to spend TIF dollars to pay for the new music center, they could include that as one of the revenue sources for the NCA.
We could, yeah, and we could take any type of funding source and say that. That's
All right. So that's okay. That's good. The application also talks about bonds. How would the NCA be an entity that could collect bonds? Well, they talk about the developer being the person that takes the assumption for the bonds, which technically would be the city for the properties that the city owns, and quite frankly, they're really the only developer.
So the NCA can take on debt.
Right.
Okay, and they, just like a city or a school district or any other jurisdiction in Ohio, they pledge future dollars to pay those debts, right? So just like a TIF, right? A TIF, we're pledging future dollars as the increment changes, right? We're taking those dollars and we're pledging them towards those projects, okay? Without going back and raising taxes, or asking for additional income tax, or raising property tax.
Sure.
So,
taking TIF or taking fees.
What's that?
They're paying with them through TIFs or fees.
Correct. Right. So yeah. So the NCA, right, board determines what fees, and they vote on that. So
Right. My question is, you're going to borrow money to fund the new music center. It's going to be in the NCA. The petition makes it sound like it could either be the city that's on the hook for that bond, or the NCA authority.
Right, either
how
one.
does the authority
Somebody's gonna come and.
get credit worthy enough to borrow that money without the city?
So just like, so you're saying, how does the city have credit, right?
Yeah, I
Right?
know how the city
Yeah,
has credit
yeah.
because.
But how's
if-
the NCA?
If the fees
Yeah.
that the NCA puts
Yeah.
in place
Yeah.
won't cover the debt.
Goes back to what I just said. So for us to, like you go to borrow money from your bank, right? And they're gonna say, we wanna see what your earnings
What
are, right?
collateral.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
exactly, or collateral, right? So same thing with the NCA, right? Anybody's gonna come out and say, okay, we're gonna give you note money to then potentially take this long-term debt.
So they got to convince the bank or whoever's lending the
Correct.
money
Just
that they're going to collect enough fees or collect enough TIF dollars
Right.
in order to pay it off.
Yeah, yeah.
Or the city will bank it with whatever the city banks, because technically the city's the developer in the NCA.
The NCA.
I mean, your petition says it's either going to be the city or
Right,
the
and it hasn't been
authority.
determined yet who's, so if the city takes on the debt, the city project, we do the same thing, we can use other tools in the toolbox that we
Right.
discussed tonight, right, to finance it. If the NCA does it, the NCA comes up with their
Yeah,
financing
if
tools.
they can
Yeah.
find somebody that would borrow just against the authority, then
Right,
it
yeah.
would only be the authority and whatever they collect. And then if they don't get it, then the lender is out whatever money that the NCA can't pay, right?
Yeah, so
Or-
you're right, and
So-
then that's what the performance does, no different if you go to your bank, right, the underwriter's gonna take a look
Right,
at
right.
it.
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to,
Yeah.
like I said, the petition says it's gonna be the city or the
Right,
authority.
and it hasn't been determined yet,
It hasn't
right?
been determined
Right,
yet. I'm just trying to think of the likelihood that it's going to be the city.
And I wanna make sure.
Well,
we
and-
have-
Because if the authority is only collecting $2
Next slide.
every time you sell
West
a
of.
meal or something like that, they're not gonna have enough money in whatever they collect in order to fund the music center,
And I wanted to make sure.
right? They're gonna need something else other than that $2 fee.
And so.
There are other, so if you take a look at the video, yeah, there's plenty of.
I know,
Yeah.
but are they going to be able to convince a lender, or are we going to have the city back those loans?
No, so they're totally two separate entities, right? So if the NCA asks us to back the loan, meaning us, the city, then that would have to be an agreement. And they're both meetings are public, right? So the NCA meetings are public and the board and the council meetings are public.
Yeah.
So that's, if that was gonna happen, then there have to be an agreement between the city and the NCA.
Right, right.
But that hasn't been determined, and the pro formas are showing that the NCA will be able to provide.
So there are performers?
We're working on performance, like the mayor said, we're close to determining those things, right? So we're looking at all the options that are available in the toolbox, right? So you heard some options tonight. So, for example, like the NCA examples that were provided, the city of New Albany, Columbus has like 4 or 5 NCAs, Cincinnati, Dayton, city of Dayton, other communities are doing it. Xenia, West Carrollton.
Sure.
Yeah, so
and
it's
you
just
know
another tool, and when they look at like a redevelopment project or looking at a project, those are all the tools in the toolbox that we have to look at.
Sure.
Instead of
So
going out to like
let me tell you where I'm at,
Yeah.
right? And the things that I've always said. The Rose Music Center is paid for by the TIF, more or less.
Having a turn lane there.
It's paid for by the TIF. If you didn't have that $1.5 million it takes to pay off that $19 million every year going into paying off the music center, that $1.5 million could be used to pay off the debt that was associated with the water softening project.
Hey.
Potentially.
Yeah, thank you for.
Or the high pressure. So you're trading paying off the debt for those projects and lower water bills for the Rose Music Center.
Unhappy with the one she had, so we were.
If it was vacant land, it wouldn't be generating any money, right? So the TIF wouldn't generate any money. You see what I'm saying? You're saying.
I know how the TIFs work.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I know how the TIFs work.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, if there were vacant land.
Yeah, it would be that
wouldn't-
bottom line there.
okay.
Yeah, that'd be the
So-
right section that, we would still get some property tax. Roughly for
okay.
us, it's 6
So-
cents on the dollar
so-
that the city receives on
Okay,
property
so
tax.
the Rose Music Center had TJ Chumps come in, right, and whatever they had took, right there, and that's about the TIF. You haven't had really anything else of appreciation coming in that area that's adding to the TIF in that whole area.
Till now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you haven't, so
Well,
what
we've
would
got
have,
other
what would have
projects.
been there
Yeah.
if you had lower water rates and good roads in there as opposed to the roads? Yeah.
If we had that silver ball, you and I wouldn't be sitting here. We'd have the lotto numbers picked and we'd go from there.
Yeah.
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 But,
we don't know what it could be, right? I don't know. I
right.
don't know.
And
You know,
the
I've
problem,
listen, I've done
problem,
this-
why do we get the Rose Music Center land so cheap?
I wasn't here, so I can't tell
Well, we
you.
got it so cheap from Myers because Myers was tired of paying the special assessments for doing Executive Boulevard. And they couldn't sell the land because the special assessments were so high.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we had taken the TIF money and upgraded Executive Boulevard without those special assessments, you'd have had businesses moving in next to Meyer a long time ago.
Maybe or maybe not.
Because that
Right,
land-
you know, so I've been doing this for 35 years, so I tell you, I've been in local government, I've worked in counties, I've worked for townships, I've worked for 3 cities, okay? I'll tell you, City of Hugh Bryant's has a lot going for it. right?
Sure.
So, we just don't know, right? I've seen in other communities, well, heck, yeah, I'll tell you, another community did exactly what you did. And you know what's there now? A school. And that community, and what's a school generate in a TIF?
Yeah, school doesn't generate
Generate
anything.
zero. Yeah. So to say that, hey, we could have done all these public infrastructures and they will come, they may not come. And that's my point, is that, there are other communities who put, we gotta get going. Okay, I'll meet you. Yeah.
All right.
So.
I missed my cookie.
Yeah, the cookie's gone. So, you just don't know. That's the problem.
Yeah, sure, of course you don't know.
Well,